Let's go, Rachel. Let's go, Rachel. Rachel, can you believe we have another episode today on Cruise Ship Explorers podcast?
Today is a good day then.
Yeah, I'm super. This one, I'm just like, this is new, exciting, new for the industry too. And do you want to tell everybody who we have?
We have Lisa Dahl. And get this, she is a tattoo artist and she's been doing her work on Virgin Voyages. And
how do you do that?
I know, but it's apparently very popular because we've had guests on the show that they've gotten tattoos right on the cruise ship. I gotta ask how this works.
Oh my God, there's got to be some stories. You know, when you have the unlimited bar package, what kind of tattoo are you getting? That's all I'm saying. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let her explain. And Rachel, what do people need to do?
I mean, dude, this has been on the to-do list for a while.
To-do list.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
You gotta subscribe. That way you don't miss the upcoming guests. You can also be alerted to all of our past episodes so you can pick and choose which ones you want to see. And always leave us a comment. We want to hear your cruise stories. Whether you work aboard a ship or you've been on a cruise, let us know. And heck, we'll bring you on the show so you can tell everybody about it.
Yeah, each week we're excited to bring you new episodes. So why don't we just get right into this episode with Lisa? Here we go. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Cruise Ship Explorers for our new podcast. And Rachel, do you want to tell who we have and we're so lucky to have?
I am super excited. We have Lisa Dahl, a tattoo artist who has done work on Virgin Voyages. So I have to hear about this because we have had guests come on and show us their tattoos that they have gotten on these cruise ships. And so I'm super curious as to how it comes about, the choice, the training, what are the rules involved. It just sounds like a lot of fun.
But first, let's ask Lisa her journey about becoming a tattoo artist and what inspired you for that career.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me on here. I basically started tattooing in 2012. So that's when my journey started. And I initially I had dreams of going to art school. I was a teenager. I was a big like Tim Burton fan, indie comic, not really superhero, which breaks a lot of people's hearts, especially since I'm dating. A lot of men will be like, "Oh, are you into Marvel?" I'm like, "Not really." But I like indie comics and things like that, and cartoons in general. And I really wanted to become an animator, but it wasn't in the cards for me. I didn't have that financial support of family members that would sign on student loans and all that kind of stuff. So then I was like, well, I know I want to do something with my art and I want to do something in the creative field, but I can't do anything that requires a degree. So tattooing just seemed to be a natural kind of transition to that. And to be fair, that was something I was interested in at the time. But even back in 2012, which both simultaneously seems like eons ago and not that far in the past, but in 2012, in the areas I was living in, which was like Fredericksburg, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia area, it was just starting as kind of artistic renaissance where there were a lot of art student kids, like getting into it, like really pushing the artistry. It was still something that I kind of foresee as like fringe kind of biker, like kind of like environment where it wasn't really about the art. You know what I mean? It was more like pick 'em and stick 'em kind of stuff.
Yep.
So even though I was working the front desk of a shop part-time, I didn't see it as a viable career. I wanted to get health insurance and, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that is the background of your career, but now stylistically, how did you transition into the style that you do, which is, if I'm describing it right, whimsical,
that's the first
cinematic.
thing I thought of. It's colorful and whimsical and just magical. If you guys just check out her work on social media,
have to see it. It's
you'll
amazing.
see exactly what I'm talking about. And I can so see, it's so funny that you said indie comic books because I can so see that in your artwork.
Yeah. Stylistically, when I first started, I kind of was just doing anything and everything. So I was working in like a walk-in type studio where whatever people came in, I just tried to replicate. And that was actually I always say that I feel like artists we each kind of have a superpower as far as like where our creativity takes us. And for me, it was always the skill of I'm good at replicating. Like I can visually look at a style from another artist. And it's like my brain is able to like reverse engineer what makes that style. So for the first like probably half of my career, I just was kind of doing whatever. I was the artist that if somebody came in with something that the other artists were too rigid on, I could be like, well, I've never done it before, but I know I can do it from looking at it. You know what I mean? Like, so after a while, because of that superpower, it's also hard sometimes to like find your own style, because sometimes style comes about through not being good at other things, right? So some artists, like, you know, everything is flat or 2D, and it's because their brains are not good at the 3-dimensional plane. But that's what makes their art so definable. You know what I mean? So I really just started to just focus on stuff that I liked and I visually was excited of. And it just kind of snowballed, you know what I mean? Like into what it is today. I like a lot of 1980s dark fantasy films like Don Bluth, which I think it's like, you wouldn't necessarily call it out, but I feel like once I say it, if you're a fan, you're like, I can see like the way she does
Rachel, you're speaking Rachel's language right there.
Yeah, like even like Land Before Time, you know, just like all that stuff. Even like Fern Gully technically is not Don Bluth, but it was like made in his style. But yeah, just all that kind of stuff I really was influenced by growing up. And like I mentioned, Tim Burton, kind of early Tim Burton career, I thought was fun. I love the idea of fantasy and whimsy. And kind of escapism through art, in the sense that I think it's so technically amazing when people can render things realistically, but I think it's horribly boring at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's like where it's like, oh, wow, look how this portrait looks just like a photo. And I'm just like, yeah, it's from a technical standpoint, it's mind blowing. But from an everything else standpoint, for me personally, it's boring. You know what I mean? Yeah, it just looks like reality. I want to take something and make it look, you know, fantastical.
Yeah, I mean, the style that I've seen online, you know, from your creative, it's just amazing. And it really separates you, I think, from an artist, you know, and what you do, which, you know, when I was showing Rachel, I was like, Rachel, this guest, you're going to love her, because that's all her. She loves that style.
But I also think a difficult part of being a tattoo artist or an artist in general is that everybody has a very unique style that develops over many, many years of practice. And like you were saying, some people kind of get stuck in that style. Now, it's one thing if you are an artist selling pieces at an art gallery or selling your pieces online and you're known for that style. But with tattoo artists, there's a whole other dimension, and that you are getting people walking in through the door that want you for your style. But when you're working on a cruise ship or you're working as part of a team in a tattoo parlor, you have to also be able to imitate other styles. You know, people are going to come in and say, hey, I want this like real Picasso looking thing, or cubism, or, you know, something that's completely out of left field. And so you saying that you are able to look at a piece and capture its style, I think that that's an important skill to have, because it's one thing to be an artist, but in order to be able to monetize this artistry, you know, as a commodity, you kind of have to be able to have that breadth of styles, you know, or at least be able to mimic it to make the client happy.
Yeah, 100%. And that's definitely an asset. I mean, there's definitely some artists who, will take those types of jobs, that's not, you know, they're not very good at that. And then they wind up not getting invited back, or they just struggle during the whole time, because the whole time they're just telling clients, yeah, I can't do that. I only do this, you know, and that's really not best for the cruise ship environment. Like, you really need to thrive in that environment. You need to be able to step outside your own style and kind of just let your own artist ego go. You know what I mean? And just go, like, what does this client want? And let me just give it to them to the best of my ability. It's really not about me per se. You know what I mean? Like, it's more about them and their experience.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, you know, tattooing on Virgin Voyages, how did you become involved with Virgin Voyages? You know, from the standpoint of, I think the retail location is owned by Squid Ink. Is that correct? The relationship?
That's correct.
How did you get involved with that?
So when I order tattoo supplies from a supplier, a lot of times they put flyers and so on into the box of supplies. Sometimes they'll throw out a free magazine, that type of thing. And so years ago, I saw a little flyer advertising to apply for a guest spot on this new upcoming tattoo shop that was going to be on Virgin Voyages. So this was before they kind of even went like real public with it. They were trying to see like how the interest they could get. And I actually put it up in my office at the time, up on the wall, kind of like to manifest, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. I love goals. I love like ambition, and I like having things that I'm like working towards. And I love the idea that it was basically a historical moment, you know, that this was a new age thing of having a tattoo shop on a cruise ship. And I wanted to be a part of it, basically. So it took a couple years. I think it took almost 2 years after I initially applied for me to get booked on the ship, because they just had such a large roster, you know, of artists that were interested. And I think they kind of did phase one, where the first year they did a lot of, you know, heavy hitters. So people from Ink Master, people that were very, very visual in the public eye, mainstream, they booked on the boat, you know what I mean?
Well, of course. Like, yeah. They want to get that draw.
Yeah, and then they got the B, C, D listers, you know.
yeah.
So when it comes to, not saying that it's bad quality, but just the idea of, are you on TV or not? You know what I mean? Like that
it's a draw. It is what it is. You know, they're looking for that name that can bring people onto, especially because it's a new cruise line. So and it's not just tattoo artists. I'm sure it's the same with their entertainment or shows.
Yeah.
The people that they bring on, it's across the board. But then, you know, as it settles on, you know, they're going to have to, and they bring on new ships, they're going to have to expand the business. So how has your experience been tattooing on the ship?
I loved it. I thought it was really great. I was there for a 3-week contract, basically. And I was really excited about, you know, I was there by myself. I have a 5-year-old son, so I had to leave him back at home. That was the only thing, honestly. If I didn't have such a young son at home, I would have been more like, can I just do this like for 3 months? You know, like
right. Yeah, right. Give me a contract. Sign me up.
Yeah, I'll do it extended. But it was my first cruise in general. So I had never even been on a cruise. And also a new work environment, because I've been what I call rogue for a really long time. I owned my own studio. I just closed it down at the end of 2023, but I was owning my own studio since 2014. So I wasn't really used to being in an environment really where I had like a manager, you know what I mean? Again, so
absolutely.
That was it was like me trying to like come onto the ship and be like, okay, you know, like this is not like, I'm not running the show. I'm just an artist here. And, you know, hopefully their management's good, you know what I mean? And hopefully everything's fine. And it was great.
And do you find it very different tattooing, you know, on sea versus land, from everything from, I mean, you know, the first thing that goes in my head, okay, the boat's rocking a little bit, or even the clientele, because you're getting all kinds of clientele. You know, I have seen them advertise that unlimited drinking package. So that's got to alter a little bit of the thought of getting a tattoo. So tell us a little bit about that, the difference between the land and the sea.
So I did not notice very much as far as like any kind of like, you know, movement in the ship till about almost a week in. Every once in a while, you might just feel like a sense of just this kind of, you know, kind of feeling. That's the best way I can explain it. But overall, I feel like tattooing at least I can talk about myself. I go into like a hyper focus when I'm tattooing.
Sure.
So it really does. It takes something more than level 1 to kind of pull me out of that. I didn't notice it until we had a couple, you know, choppy days at sea. Just we had a hurricane that was kind of following us the whole time.
Wow.
We never came across it, but it was just like always on the periphery of wherever we were going. So, but even that wasn't so bad because it was like slow, kind of like
yeah.
So it's like my brain felt like I could just kind of go, you know, like with it.
Sure.
I've been doing it a while too. I'm used to a certain amount of movement from the client that I'm just going to have to deal with, right? Is what I call it. And so for me personally, it didn't affect me. I don't feel like it affected my quality of work whatsoever.
What about the clientele?
The clientele was really fun. I was actually expecting people to be a real pain in the ass, to be honest.
Right.
Like I was.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we're going back to early walk-in days, where you get people that are just rude or entitled or maybe under the influence. Like, we're going to have to tap back into the first 5 years, of how it was the tattoo. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised that even if, like, you could tell somebody had a little bit too much to drink and they were just there watching their sober friend get tattooed, they seemed to keep their chill. Like, they seemed to
that's awesome.
Yeah. So everybody was really cool. I got to meet lots of fun people from all walks of life. So I had a lot of great conversations.
I'm just so curious. It's such a new venture, having a tattoo, place on board of a ship. You've never heard of that a few years back. I think it's 2 or 3 years old, or is it longer than that since they started?
It could be. I'm horrible at times sometimes. I want to say no more than 4 years.
Yeah, it can't be that long. So
yeah, it's not that long.
And I got to assume that other cruise lines are taking notes and going, wait a second, is this thing taking off? Because if it is, you know how that works in the industry. They just copy each other.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, it'll probably be at least 5-6 years of them having like solid numbers. And then if it's good, you know what I mean, then I can see other ones trying to follow suit for sure.
How many tattoos does the parlor do, or the tattoo shop do on the ship per week, say, or during your contract? Not necessarily how many you did, but ballpark, like the shop itself.
So I can tell you from my experience, I worked with 2 other artists who had done some previous contracts, and I chatted with them as well about their past experiences. So the 3 weeks I was there, I was very busy. The shop itself was busy. A lot of people were coming in. So we worked 12-hour shifts every other day. The in-between days, we worked 5 to 10. And then we have a 7 to 10 p.m. day. No days off. So that's a lot of time. You know what I mean?
That is.
And I was booked pretty much solid, except for like a few little hour spots here or there for like the entire trip.
Wow.
So I was hustling. I was doing, and I was trying to fit as many people in as possible, because that's what I'm there for. I'm here to, like tattoo. And if I'm stuck in the shop, they're going to keep me there whether I'm tattooing or not. So I'd much rather be working than just
stay busy. The time passes. Yeah.
So, I was doing at least, most people, they're getting a tattoo that is probably going to be under an hour, because most of them are getting smaller, under, maybe palm size type tattoos to commemorate the trip, or a loved one, or the loved one with the trip. And so I don't know. I did a lot. I did probably like 20 a day, something like that. Like
that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a definite heavy work schedule. And then, especially being a first-time cruiser, then you get used to the sleeping on the cruise, we'll get into that, the accommodations and all that. But I'm just curious, like how Squid Ink, which is a pretty big name, how that brought a different atmosphere to the shop. Were people familiar with it? Was it just the fact that there's a tattoo shop on board? What was the atmosphere like?
I think it's more that it's a tattoo shop on board, because there's actually a lot of shops all around that kind of share the Squid Ink name, or in like different variations. So other tattooers, if they know enough about the background, there are some, I think it's the world famous Tattoo Ink. The owner of that also owns Squid. I think it's between that, whoever, somewhere upper level in that, as well as FK Irons, which is a machine maker. I believe people involved with that are the ones behind Squid Ink. So as a tattooer, you might be aware of that and recognize like those names. But as just somebody on the ship, you're probably just looking at it as it's a ship, or it's a tattoo shop on a ship. Like the Squid Ink name isn't necessarily going to ring a bell unless you've been there already. So
it's just a fact of like people seeing a tattoo shop and going, whoa, that we've not seen that before. That's a new kind of place. Yeah. It's like when the cruise industry started to bring celebrity chefs onto ship, or even brands, a Guy Fieri, like his brand of, restaurants on cruise ships, who were like, whoa, never seen a brand like that on a cruise ship. So I think the industry is changing where they're bringing things like that onto ship because they have to up their game a little bit and keep things new. And Virgin, yeah, and the whole Virgin line of just being an adult ship is it's changed the game as well. So that's interesting in and of itself. So did you find there was some challenges as far as, anything that stood out as far as working, in the shop on the ship?
Mainly the hours, like those are some long hours.
That is.
To be honest, I was totally blindsided by it because they didn't.
Oh, really?
They didn't really discuss. I made the mistake of assuming, right? So I assumed that because they didn't send me anything about our hours, that it would just be standard 8-hour shifts, standard labor law, kind of stuff. So I actually have back issues. So when I got on the ship and they were like, "Yep, so here's our schedule," I was like, "What?"
Whoa, that's crazy.
Well, kind of like, I have back problems. Like I did bring my back brace, but straight up, like I kind of have to end when my back ends because then I might herniate a disc and then I'll be just sitting in my room on the rest of the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And so I talked to the manager and she was like, "Yeah, we'll work with you. If you need extra breaks, let me know." And I said, "Okay." But also, I liked if, you would at least, I could have prepared, you know what I mean? A little mentally or physically or something. So, but I actually did not have issues. I think it was because, I don't have the regular things I have to do at home, like get up and, make breakfast and clean my house. So even though I was working these long hours, whenever I was off, I would do laps around the ship. I would do things just to make sure that I was like staying mobile and not locking up. And that, even though I was bent over and like what we call the shrimp, posture, I try to, counteract and stretch and do all that stuff. So I made it work. And it was fine.
Yeah, it's funny because I can totally relate. I'm a drummer, so you're always hunched over playing the drum. So you get those long hours and, it's definitely an issue. I'm curious, and I don't really know about this kind of thing, but the equipment and tools that you would use at your own shop, do they differ when you go to the shop on a cruise ship, and how do you adjust? Is there such thing as different tools and equipment?
So typically on any kind of like guest spot or doing anything outside of your home, most cases you bring your own like immediate tools. So like your machines that you like to use and maybe a few other things if you're really particular about it. But they actually supplied all of the inks and like all the other base products, which were things that I use at home and actually were the brands I was already using at home.
Oh yeah, so you're really familiar with it. And what are the themes? Because I would think for a shop on land, you see all kinds of themes, but it kind of sounds like on the cruise ship, the most popular theme is this commemoration theme. So I imagine you have tattooed so many cruise ship little things and anchors and all that kind of stuff. I would challenge you. I'd be like, I need a sleeve and it's going to be the buffet. So I need the fries, the burgers, like as if going down the buffet.
Yeah, people got the standard stuff like an anchor or like a mermaid, silhouette, things like that, nautical stars, palm tree, a bunch of like basic things like that. But then you also had people that just got things totally unrelated or maybe for an anniversary. Like there were a lot of first time people getting tattooed actually too.
Wow.
I would think so.
Yeah. So there were a lot of 40 and up. So it wasn't like young people getting there. It was like people that, are well established in their lifespan getting, these tattoos. And so I did a father and son, and they both got like black and gray lion faces, basically. So that has nothing to do with the cruise, but it has to do with their relationship to each other and them experiencing getting their tattoos on this trip. And so that was amazing. A lot.
That's very cool. What was like the coolest tattoo you did in your 3-week thing? You're like, wow, I'm glad to have gotten this appointment.
So there was a lady, and she saw online, because they advertise they put you up on a screen, and advertise you as an artist. So you can kind of look up the artist ahead of time and see their work. And she went into my available highlight and saw some of my stuff. And she saw this like kind of fairy design I did. And she's in a very kind of like flying up kind of action pose, you know, kind of like regal
cool.
kind of look to her. And her name was Kat with a K, and she wanted it to be kind of feline like. So I just redrew a few things. And she was in, you know, she was somewhere like in her 50s, I believe, somewhere along there, maybe a little older. But it was her first tattoo, and she got it as a half sleeve.
Oh, that's
first
amazing.
tattoo, and she went half sleeve.
Yeah, and she got it as a half sleeve.
You know,
she came in like, no, I want a Lisa doll. You know what I mean? Like, I want which I was not expecting on that trip at all. So I thought that was like really cool. That people even just completely blind, just like looking me up real quick, are like, whatever idea I had, I no longer care for. This is what I want. You know what I mean? Like,
that's amazing.
That was pretty cool.
And I would imagine that, you know, getting a tattoo, just in general, whether it's on a cruise ship or not, but being on a cruise ship, they have to, you know, protect it by not swimming. And there's certain things they are allowed to do and not allowed to do. Do you have to go over all the rules with everybody pretty much, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Because some are not educated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have now, or else it wouldn't make sense to even have the tattoo shop on the cruise ship, but we have these bandages now that are waterproof that we use industry wide.
Okay.
And they're called, you might have heard Sanoderm, Tegaderm, Second Skin. Like, they're all the same product, different brands. But basically it's like a clear adhesive bandage that just goes over the tattoo and locks it in. And they change it every so many days, and it keeps it from any kind of water issues. But what they do have to watch out for is sun exposure. So it doesn't protect against UV rays. So that's something that we just talk to every single client during the consultation process too, you know, just to make sure, like, if they're getting something that I know there's no way they're going to be able to cover, you know, when they're out at the beach, I mention that, you know what I mean? Of like, is there, you maybe have another spot you're interested in, or maybe just a whole other tattoo idea, because there's no way you're going to be able to keep, you know, from getting like it sunburned under the wrap if you're going to be in the Bahamas all day.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And it works fine. Most people got it in places that they could easily be covered by a sock, or, you know, like a bracelet or something, or a shirt. Or they just planned it for what they were doing, you know, when in their trip.
No, that's, I would imagine. Yeah. I mean, listen, you have to protect it. So you want to be educated on what not to do. And being on a cruise, you're on vacation, you can easily forget, oh my God, I just got a tattoo. Yeah. So I just forgot about what I'm supposed to do. So you being a first time cruiser, we have to hear about the other side. Forget about the work side for a second.
Yeah.
What did you think about, like, how was your accommodations? Because I know we speak to so many people that work on cruise ships, so it's across the board, the accommodations, where they're staying. Do you have to share a room? So, you know, as far as that goes, and then we're going to get into Rachel's favorite subject, which is the food. But how was your accommodations?
Oh, they were great. So I was a little unsure, you know, like what the setup was going to be. My only thing was like, am I sharing a room? Because then no, I'm too old and diva-ish to share a room right now. Of course. Right. I want to be comfy. There's a time in the day where I want to stop talking to people, right? You know what I mean? I don't want to have to talk to nobody. And I don't want a sleepover type environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I need that to be ready for, especially if I'm working 12-hour shifts. Like, I need that chill time. So the rooms that they put us in are just your standard guest rooms that have a porthole.
Okay.
So I was happy about that, because I was a little worried about having a room with no window, just because I don't know how I would feel. I've never been on, you know, something, and I didn't want to commit to a 3-week stay and then be like losing my mind. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah, they were swanky. I mean, it's Virgin. I'm a big fan of Virgin. I wish I had money to fly Virgin, but I like flew Virgin, I think, like twice, when it was like something like the plane I had actually booked, like, didn't work out, and I had to like fly Virgin. And it's just, everything is high tech. Everything's swanky. It's very modern. I love their design, like how they design whatever they're doing. So it had that same feel where you had the bed was comfy. You had the porthole, kind of like minimalist, but nicely decorated. And what I love too is they're all about, you know, entertainment. So the TV in the room is really nice, and it has like backlighting. They have like theater mode. where you hit a button on your iPad and it like shuts the curtains and then like
oh, that's
lighting.
so awesome.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
Me too. So I was like, hell yeah. I wish I was asking a lot of the clients, like, do you have one of this like rocks? They call them rock star rooms, which are like the like old like presidential suites.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to find somebody to see if a client maybe had one so that they could just let me go look at it.
Yeah, no, we would be the same way.
When I get off, can I go look at your room? Like, I'm not, this isn't like me trying to have sex with you. I literally just want to see your room.
Yeah. No, we're the same way. When we're going on a cruise, if we know somebody has one of the nice suites, we're like, hey, could we check it out? So either they're going to look at us like we're super freaky weird, or no, we just really want to look at your suite.
Worst they can say is no. Yeah. So, but no, I
exactly.
But yeah, I bet that it looks amazing. And so yeah, I mean, the whole rest of the ship, they do fun entertainment, throughout different types of the day. They'll have, like a duo group singing acoustic versions of popular songs or story time, for not for the kids, but like adult kind of story time, talking about they have a night called Scarlet Night, and they built like a whole lore around it. And just lots of fun stuff. The people on the ship are performers in themselves. So like when you first walk onto the ship, they each have their little outfits, and it looks like you're about to walk into like a Broadway play. It's almost how it's like, they'll be like, rooms over here, and they're just like doing these like
it's super produced.
Like, yeah, and you're just like, okay. Reminds me of those what are they old, this is gonna date me, but the old eBay commercials where they break out into a musical.
That's what I remember that.
Yeah, that's what it feels like on the ship. So I was impressed by all the little detail, because I noticed that stuff. I'm a fan. I'm kind of weird in the sense that I kind of love branding. I know it sounds funny, but like Disney does it really well too. Like if you've ever been to Disneyland, like everything, like whether it's the way the trim is painted in your room is so meticulous and so detailed. And there's not many companies or brands that really go the extra mile. And I feel like Disney and Virgin are two that I've seen that seem to share that same kind of vision.
Well, I can see that. You're an artist, so you're looking at design catches your eye and patterns and what
colors they choose to use to set the vibe. Like, I don't know, my brain's always picking that stuff apart.
Yeah, I love seeing that too. We haven't been on the ship, but I've seen a lot of videos from the ship. I love seeing the detail of the LED lighting and how it's like they always seem to have that purple, red kind of glow all around the different places. I just love that kind of stuff. It's kind of modern, and it doesn't remind me of the older cruise ships. It's definitely, and they're appealing to a new audience too. They're just setting a bar completely different. So I think that's a unique thing with Virgin. How about the food? Because we have to get to that for Rachel. How was the food? First of all, because you work on this ship, and again, speaking to different people that work on the ships, there's designated areas where you can eat and that kind of thing. How did they treat you for that?
So I found out pretty quickly that there was like kind of a workaround that like all of us pretty much did once we figured this out. So they have us wear these little Virgin name tags that say tattoo artist on them. And it wasn't completely relayed to me, so I was kind of shocked when it happened. But I was just in the food court. I was trying to get a latte. Well, there's like certain rules that like if you're a worker and if you're in line at certain food places, not all of them, that if a guest, like a ship guest comes in line, you're supposed to let them in front of you. So like stuff like that. So it's not for like the main food, but maybe like the extras, like lattes. They want to keep the line down for the crew member or for the guests. So they kind of tell, I guess, crew members to prioritize the guests. Well, that doesn't quite work for me, right? Because like I might be on a 15-minute break. I'm just trying to get a damn latte. I was in this line for 20 minutes. I'm not going to get out of it. I'm sorry, fire me. I just was like,
right. No, I hear you, because you want your coffee and you got to get back to work.
I got to get back to work. I'm working, you know what I mean? Like, and I also, I guess, like it might be a little diva-ish to me, but I also saw it as I'm making you money. So it's like I'm getting like, by me working on Virgin Mobile, they're getting a cut of the sales I'm doing. I'm getting a cut. They're getting a cut. Instead of like, the crew member, they're getting a paycheck, but they're not, you know what I mean? Directly.
It's a little different. Yep.
So I did kind of see it as when Lisa wants a latte, Lisa gets a latte.
Good for you. Good for you.
So what we would do is we would just take our name tags off. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
And then stand so that nobody, so that another crew member didn't, be like, hey, you're supposed to go to the back.
Yeah.
Because I had been in line, and when I approached, I had my name tag still on when I first found this out. And the barista said, I'm sorry, I can't serve you. You have to go to the back of the line because there's people behind you. And I was like, excuse me? You know what I mean?
You're like, what? What's going on here?
And so then I talked to the manager about it, and she had told me, oh, yeah, that's the thing. So then my brain just went, well, then I'll just take my name tag off. You know
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have time to play with this. I need my food, So I could see that being something they work out in the future. But until then, if you're an artist listening to this, just take your name tag off and get your license.
Yeah.
Well, plus, if you're on your first contract, I think a lot of the people aren't familiar with your face yet. So you could probably do it for a while. Eventually, you're going to get known. And I thought the tattoo shop is something so unique on the ship. Do you get people like approaching you off hours to talk to you because it's kind of cool? Like, you're a tattoo artist on the ship, and like a little fan club going on
or
the
even
ship.
Future clients,
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And that's the way it's set up. It's like, so for the artists that do this, we're not quite crew, right? But we're also not quite entertainers. We're a little bit of both. They literally classify us as kind of part entertainer, part crew. And so with that being said, we get some like special member privileges. And they encourage us to talk to people if they approach us, when we're outside of the studio, to talk to them about tattoos, especially if there wasn't a lot of initial influx of bookings. Then they're like, yeah, if you're out and about and you're enjoying yourself on the ship, talk to people about tattoos. Like, you're kind of like on, 24/7 in that way. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm used to doing that anyway, because that's just a great way to keep business going, even locally. A lot of artists complain, that there's a meme out for tattooers that like, when it'll be like when you're at a party and somebody finds out that you're a tattoo artist, you know what I mean? It'll be like you're being bombarded or like asked similar questions. I'm like, I don't care. I will talk about, I'll book half the party at the party. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, listen, business is business. Yeah,
exactly. If I was having a real hard time, I'd probably make a shirt that said, I'm a tattoo artist, talk to me about tattoos, and I'd go shopping. You know what I mean? Or do something because people will, for sure. Yeah. And so people will look you up too. And if they see that you look like a big deal online, then they treat you like you're a big deal in person. You know what I mean? Like, and the shop is set up that they kind of promote us as being the upper echelon of the industry, which is accurate. Like, you have to have certain kind of like accreditations or stuff that you're doing in the industry, awards, something that kind of puts you a bit above, what I mean? Like the average to where you're getting that gig.
Yeah. And I would imagine that becomes, that would be part of a draw too for clients, it's, you're not going to a local shop down the street, not that there's anything bad about that, but they're trying to make you the rock star of the tattoo stuff.
I mean, Virgin's whole thing is, like I said, they're rock star brands. It's all about rock star, about like that kind of thing. I mean, they have all these, you had Virgin Records, you had like all this other stuff before the Virgin Cruise Lines, and they're bringing all of that into it. So it's like making people feel like they are, a rock star, and that they're important as well. So it makes sense that you're going to bring other people that they perceive in that same field as well.
Well, plus it makes the guests feel more at ease because they know that they're getting someone with a lot of experience under their belt. Yes. Whereas when you go to a tattoo shop, you have various levels. No one's bad, because no one would hire anybody bad. But if you look at any artist's work 5 years down the line, 7 years down the line, and applicable to everybody, if they're doing this craft day in and day out, you see huge improvements in their artwork, you get that range, but people can come to the Virgin, Squid Ink Tattoo Shop and know that, okay, I'm going to be in good hands with basically whoever I pick, in this room. But then it's about that artist that just matches my vision, for the piece that I want. So I can see, the selection process has to definitely be a little bit of a notch above.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get to work with any friends or other artists that you knew?
I didn't know the two artists that I worked with. The first girl, I didn't get to talk to her too much because there was a bit of a language barrier. She was like Spanish speaking was her main language, and she was still kind of learning English.
Okay.
The manager spoke both, so she kind of was like helping her talk
The
to clients.
in-between.
And everything else. I am also somebody can be speaking English to me but have a thick accent, and I don't know what my problem is. I still won't understand them. So for I just mainly I talked to her and would say hello and have a quick conversation, but I didn't really get into any depth. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. So and then the second person I worked with was a guy named Dean Clark, and he had done several stints on the studio already, and he's from South Africa. I thought we were a good team because he specialized in black and gray. Just his whole thing was almost like the opposite end of mine. You know what I mean? So it was kind of a perfect pairing. We both were good at the basics and everything, but if you were looking for something specialized, it was very easy. In some cases, if I saw something that I just knew was, this is Dean all the way, I would be like, you know what, you want to talk to Dean,
Sure.
He's I'll give you a good version of this, but he's going to give you an amazing version of this. And vice versa. We would, we were just kind of complimenting each other with whoever we felt was best for the job.
No, that is actually really cool because it allows the client to come on board and get a variety of different artists, and I think it's nice that, you complement each other. You spoke about on your downtime, of the cruise ship, you would do some running around the ship on their track. I would imagine they have one of the tracks. Was there any other stuff that you like to do in the little bit of downtime that you got aside from sleep?
Eat the food.
Eat the food. So talk about the food.
Good. So good.
Did you get to go to all the food places, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's like a big food court, basically. And then they have also on the different floors, little, little other things ice cream place, the latte place, some other things. But on the main floor, it's like a dining hall. That's the word I'm looking for. And so they just have a variety of food. I was so happy to see that they had sushi and ramen. So I was there a lot. They probably recognized me the most from the ship. So I just and I would eat it at any time of the day. So if it was breakfast, there'd be times I'm sitting there with, being like, one ramen, please.
Right. And
they had a really good dessert. They had a couple themed nights too, where they would basically, they had a dumpling kind of Asian cafe kind of theme. I actually didn't get to really participate in that too much because it was from 5 to 8 when I was working type thing. But I did go up and I saw them cleaning up from it, and it looks really good.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'm always curious, how the people that work on the ship, because we've heard so many different stories from, a bartender where they have to go to the crew mess downstairs at the very bottom level where they're not allowed to eat with the guests. I was up where
the guests were. I didn't even go into any of the crew, behind the curtain, if you will.
Sure.
I didn't go back there at all. I was out there with just the guests. So I got to experience all the guest amenities, which I think was perfect.
And I think also for your line of work, it's the better place to be because you are mingling with potential clients and things. Yes. So it's not a salaried position like a lot of the cruise ship, people or staff workers. So yeah, it would make a lot of sense to be out there.
Yeah. And during the dining halls, when I talked to a lot of people, because sometimes I would tattoo somebody maybe at the beginning of that particular cruise, and then they, would show the group that they were with, and then they would see me a few days later in the dining hall, and then flag me over, and I would talk to everybody else, and then people that were maybe unsure whether to get something after meeting me were like, okay, fine, I'll show up and I'll come get one tomorrow or whatever the case is. So that's where we're on the entertainment side of things, kind of walking around, and they tell us to, wear our name tag, outside of when we're actually working for that purpose. So I would always try to, because I felt visible to that extent. Also, I am very friendly with my clients. I and you're sitting there for hours. I chat with you if you're a chatter. I also get the vibe if you don't want to talk. I go either way. But I feel after people get tattooed by me, if they see me around, they want to keep talking to me and they want to show me to other people. So I didn't feel comfortable just like rolling out of bed, you know what I mean? And like shuffling up like in my PJs, right? Looking like a mess. Because that might be when someone's like, "Oh, that's my tattoo artist." And I want to be like,
right,
"Oh, look at me."
You're like, no.
That's so true, because that's my favorite thing. Like, you roll up out of bed on a cruise ship, I'm in my sweats, I hit the buffet, all comfortable. But so even when you're not working, you're working, you know?
Yeah, that
so
makes it a
still,
little
like, try
tough.
to put on my makeup and like look at least okay, you know, where I wouldn't be like embarrassed if somebody flagged me over. But there were a few times where, you know, I would just feel mentally not in the mood, and I might kind of hide a little, you know what I mean, up to the side and be like, okay, I think I'm good over here. You know, like I just want a moment of silence, you know.
You have to have it, because otherwise you're just completely, you know, on 100% of the time. And we totally get that, you know, just being in the industry. It's like you just need some downtime to your own self for your own mental health, you know, and you just need that.
I have a sarcastic sense of humor. And so I feel like if I get worn down, my leash on that like gets loose, right? Where I'll just blurt something out and I'll immediately be like, why did I say that? Like it would be something like, let's say I'm tired, I'm kind of grumpy, but I'm trying to be, oh, hi, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And if somebody's like talking to me, we'll say an example of like doing like a ring, like doing something on their ring fingers to commemorate a marriage or something. And then I might be like, yeah, we could do that. It would be this much, but keep in mind, you know, it would be difficult to remove if you ever, I just want to fully let you know, we make a few jokes back and forth. And then I might be like, so yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help you with your horrible idea. You know, I'm not,
Right.
and then like we all laugh, but then I'm like, why didn't I say that out loud? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I get it. It's like you just sometimes got to keep that in, you know.
But it's hard because because it is like work, you know, and so the filter wall start to become weak. And you're like trying to keep it closed.
It seems that it must be because I smile and giggle after I say it. Like it seems to kind of just go. People don't seem to notice, because there are times I have said something like that, and then I will be almost like cringing for them, but they're like, "Yeah, so where do I sign up?" And I'm like, "Okay, good." They just didn't even.
Yeah, they didn't. No, I get it.
You know, like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, you know.
I love that. I have to ask you about some of your other artistic services. So I know you do permanent makeup. Am I correct in that? And some illustrations. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. So I started doing permanent makeup a few years after regular traditional tattooing. And I do brows and eyeliner. I was trained in lips and did that for a bit, but I just wanted to take it off my menu. I don't enjoy doing it. It's just one of those things. And I also don't fully believe, I like to believe in what I'm offering, you know, that's like good for the client. The lips can be cool, but you have to get them, the maintenance on them is like once a year. And then, so you're going to be paying me all this money once a year. Just go buy some lipstick. You're fine. Like, I just don't feel like it really helps women out, where the eyebrows and eyeliner I feel like are good investments. You know what I mean? For the reasons they want it. I used to do, I would speak on stage in the permanent makeup industry end of things. I was more active in the educational side of things on the permanent makeup side. It was just an easier ladder to climb and network on for me. And I still offer all of that today, the brows, eyeliner, regular tattooing. And illustration, I throw that up there with the hopes that one day I'll make money off of illustration. But honestly, like I've sent things to illustrators here and there. You know, illustrator gigs and stuff, but, you know, because I don't have the formal degree and whatever else, I don't have an agent, you know, it seems to just kind of go on dead ears, but I still like to try to pick up those gigs every once in a while.
Oh, that's awesome. And for like the future of the industry, do you see it headed in a certain direction, changing at all? You know, obviously the Virgin Voyages is definitely a change to having the shops on a cruise ship. But, you know, where do you see it heading in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see any changes?
We're actually going through a huge shift right now. So right now there's a big actual industry lull that's going on. So there's a lot of people leaving tattooing because it's just not a viable career for them anymore.
Okay.
Things will always, you know, like things always come back. There's been previous lulls and, you know, like ups and downs, and it has to do with the economy. There's certain things that when the economy gets to a certain extent, that it affects people. So basically when people no longer feel comfortable spending any disposable income for a long period of time, then it starts affecting tattooing. So that's kind of where we're at right now, where with the grocery prices and whatever else, people are just like, I want to get tattooed, but I also I need to afford my basics and my whatever in mind.
Yeah.
So when that comes back around, you know what I mean? Like, and then economic things are different. I feel like there's always a switch. There's always like a different, a trend maybe, or like an artistic look that people are going for. But I think, you know, the artistry will always be important, whether it's minimalist or involved. There's just certain things that are always going to be a staple. I'm actually really, and could be an episode all on its own, but I've been following all the AI stuff, and I will do all the AI prompting to make art and like do all this stuff. I've been following all of it. I just think it's amazing. And, you know, that already right now, if you're a tattoo artist that embraces it instead of like scared by it, that bumps up our references to new heights. They're all focused on ceiling and all this stuff, which is a conversation, but I can use it now to literally set up lighting, you know what I mean, and everything else like in a cinematic way that I have in my head, but I may not be able to find a reference for on Google, which is what we would usually do. I could use, you know, Midjourney to do all that. And that helps to, you know, make my artwork better.
No, that's so true. And I think the AI just in general and in our world is really changing everything, you know, just from the stuff you just described to even stuff that I worked with. The whole music industry has changed for AI, you know, good, bad, it or not, whatever, you know, it's there. You better absorb it and just use it if you can. So
that's what I mean.
that's
if you
great.
can use it as a tool, especially I like to use it to get ideas. You know, if I have an idea for, you know, maybe like a unicorn and a fantasy, but it just hasn't come together yet. Just start toying around with ideas and you get like 50 ideas so quickly. And just being able to rule out what works together, what doesn't work together, or sometimes it'll add an element that you didn't think of and you're like, oh, you know? So no, I find it really interesting to play with it and then kind of take the ideas and put my own spin on it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, is like taking the ideas, putting your own spin on it. So AI is definitely, it's in its infancy right now as far as tattooers using it, but that will have a huge effect in some way as that develops. And I think it will affect the artist at least as far as the other art careers, because you still need the human element of technically applying the tattoo. Eventually, they will be able to make a machine that, you know, like a engraving machine does it for you, but you're still going to need to program that machine. You're still going to need to, you know, have the art for that machine. So I feel like there's a place for tattooing. It just might change. You know what I mean? The face of it might change and the purpose of it may change.
Yeah. And I think also with tattoo artists, there's something to be said about the organic hand doing the work, because the lines are not going to be perfect. And that is the signature of the artist. And there's something so organic about these pieces. And it's where CGI with movies are going. I personally like the practical effects, because as an artist, when you sculpt a creature, an alien or whatever, just like a human face, your eyes are not always going to be perfectly symmetrical, and the nose, and that's what gives it its character compared to, and they're getting better at it now to make it, you know, a little bit more organic. But the very first ones were just not as believable. Everything is too perfect. And it's no different than musical artists recording and using, not that auto-tune is a bad thing. It's an artistic modulation. You can use it, you know, artistically, but there's something to be said about the way the Beatles and those bands recorded, where it's organic, it's one take, because there's not much editing tools. And the sound of that versus something that's more like in the box. So I think that there's always going to be a need for human artists.
Yeah, there will always be a need for it.
Yeah, there's always going to be that, but I think you're seeing a lot of stuff today come back as hybrid stuff, where they're doing the best of both worlds. Even in the music world that I work in, you know, we're using old stuff like tape machines, you know, people are buying records now, you know, who would have thought, you know, it's crazy. Yeah. So I think you're going to see the best of both worlds. Lisa, what do you have coming up that we can promote here? Anything new and exciting, or can you tell everybody where everybody can search you out and find you?
Sure. So you can find me on the internet on pretty much all the socials. My handle is Lady Lisa Doll, just kind of all one word. And you can follow me on there. I also have a Threads account, which is the new thing that Instagram is doing. But I mainly just bullshit on there. But if you want to read my bullshitting, you can add me on there too. Because it's not really
we get platform. It. Yeah.
So, and Instagram is where I'm most active. If you don't do socials, you can add me on my website, lisadallart.com, and join my mailing list. I always recommend people join my mailing list. That's the best way to see what I'm up to and what I'm doing, because the algorithm may or may not show you my content, even if you want to see it. So a mailing list is a surefire way that you'll be updated.
Oh, that's awesome.
And as far as anything coming up, I actually do not currently have anything coming up, but I always have things in the works. So.
Oh, I'm sure. You're an artist. Come on. Everybody does. Yeah. What about, would you like to do another contract with a cruise ship if it was offered?
Oh, I'd love to. That was one of the positives of closing down my business last year, is that I wanted to be free to, I didn't want to have to babysit the business anymore. I wanted to be free to be able to do these types of contracts and guest spots and opportunities.
Yeah, I bet you're going to see not just Virgin, but there's going to be more shops opening up on different lines, because I just think it's such a unique thing that has not been done. And, if you look at the trends of cruises and what they open up, one person does a Broadway show, then the next company brings a Broadway show, or celebrity chefs, and it's just the nature of it. So Virgin was the first, and now I think you're going to see more of it on other cruise lines as well. So I'm excited for you and your career as far as just in general, but offers more opportunities. But this has been great. Rachel, do you have anything else for Lisa?
No, I think we covered a lot. And of course, we need to leave some, for her to come back.
Oh, we're going to have you back if you'd come back, and we'll tell some more stories. I want to hear some client stories from the cruise ships, because I'm sure that you have some, we didn't even touch on that yet.
I have a lot of them.
This has been great. So let's get you back another time, and we look forward to having you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hang tight.
Thank you guys so much.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. That was a great episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Great guests. We're super excited. Each week, we're going to bring you a new interview with cruise staff featuring entertainers, cruise chefs, cruise directors, bartenders, whoever we can find, as well as cruisers themselves to tell their individual stories. And we're going to have special guest celebrities. Theme cruises are super big, so we're going to be interviewing a bunch of people. But Rachel, tell them what they need to do to be notified each week.
What do you mean do? They should have did. So if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any future episodes. And if you want to watch some of the previous episodes, the best place to do that is our website. And that is cruiseshipexplorers.com.
Okay, everybody, you heard it, cruiseshipexplorers.com. Join us each week. We're super excited. Till the next time, see you then.